All right, so good afternoon. I'm Clee Jackson. I'm president of the Greater Grand Rapids branch of the NAACP. I want to thank everyone who is here with us today. That is continuing in the fight for an unbiased, a fair investigation and review of the officer-involved shooting of Patrick Lyoya. I want to remind everyone that we must uplift the entire family and continue to keep them in our prayers. Here with me today are some of our coalition partners, including the Urban Core Collective, Link Up, the Urban League of West Michigan, the ACLU of Michigan, and A Glimpse of Africa. Also, we have with us several pastors from the faith-based community, pastoral leadership here as well. We want to thank them for their support and coalition efforts as well. As I mentioned in my previous remarks, we are asking for an unbiased and fair investigation. And that is directly in support with the family and what they're asking for as well. So we are demanding that Kent County Prosecutor Becker immediately recuse himself from this case. Also, we are demanding that Attorney General Dana Nessel take full control and oversight of this investigation, which is in her jurisdiction, to do so without the need to receive anyone's permission. That's important. She has full jurisdiction and legality to step in immediately. We believe and agree that based on the historical relationship between the Kent County Prosecutor's Office and the Grand Rapids Police Department, that a fair and unbiased investigation cannot occur. Fundamentally, there are too many conflicts of interest. Again, therefore, we are demanding that Kent County Prosecutor Becker recuse himself from this investigation. Additionally, we are demanding that Chief Winstrom terminate Officer Christopher Schur immediately and start the decertification process that will not allow him to ever serve as a police officer in the state of Michigan. I'll say that again. We are demanding that Chief Winstrom terminate Officer Christopher Schur immediately and start the decertification process that will not allow him to ever serve as a police officer in the state of Michigan. I'm going to ask Commissioner Robert Womack, who has worked closely with the family, if he wants to make some brief remarks, and then we'll have some of our pastoral leadership if they want to make some brief remarks as well.
Thank you, President Clee Jackson. I would just call the media's attention to our Chief Assistant Prosecutor Monica Janinski. I guess there's one newscast we don't want to have left out. I would like to call the media's attention to our Chief Prosecutor Assistant Monica Janinski, who has been married to a Grand Rapids police officer who was fired for a cover-up that was a cover-up for the prosecutor's office from Prosecutor Kuiper. So when we ask for Becker to recuse himself, it isn't personal, it's about his entire office being involved in making decisions after the investigation has came. We also want to know if this officer has been investigated and interviewed yet. And the lack of him being interviewed is that delaying this investigation from being done. Thank you, President Clee Jackson at NAACP.
President Brown, you want to make some remarks? There you go. Slide over.
Good afternoon. Primarily just want to say, stand in solidarity with the Lyoya family and asking for Prosecutor Becker to recuse himself. and remove his office from this investigation, stand with NAACP in doing so. Again, it's not personal, it's professional. It's not about him personally, it's about the position that he holds and the position that this office has. That is just, the proximity is just too close for us to believe that a fair investigation can take place. And we stand here as one collective voice asking for that recusal, asking for AD Nessel to step in as well. One final thing, if you think about what happened in Minneapolis, some of us, and myself included, believe that this is even more egregious than what happened in Minneapolis and what happened with their AD out there, how Keith Ellison, how he stepped in and understanding the egregious nature of the situation, and that the times called for him to step in. So that's what we're asking for.
My name is Frida Kanini. I'm the founder of A Glimpse of Africa that represents African immigrants and refugees' needs. And I wanted to bring up that the police chief needs to fire immediately the police officer that killed Patrick, because justice for Patrick is justice for all of us. Justice for the refugees, justice for the immigrants, justice for the black communities, it's justice for everybody. This is not an isolated incident, and I feel like holding information is not transparency, it's not justice, and it's not giving us a voice or freedom. So I really call upon everybody responsible in this case to be as transparent as possible. I'm a community leader in the impacted community, and I cannot continue to tell them to trust the process if the process is not doing what it's supposed to do. So I call for accountability, I call for peace, because if there is no peace, if there is no justice, there is no peace. And so I ask, please, the authority and everyone to be ready to work alongside with us so that we can have what we need to do to respect Patrick Lyoya's family, to respect all the communities that feel completely not heard. I think the voices are here, but we need them to be heard, and to be heard is to show us accountability and bring justice to these communities. So thank you so much, and we hope to see in the next few days changes that will prove to us that we can trust the process. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Pastor Jathan Austin. I pastor Bethel Empowerment Church. The scripture says faith without works is dead. So as we stand in prayer, we're still ready to work. We stand in solidarity and prayer for the entire family that is grieving, our city that is grieving, a country that is grieving. And we're asking that the city unite together in a way that it never has to create an opportunity that has never been there for all people. Thank you.
So at this time, we'll open it up for questions.
What kind of comments have you had with the prosecutor's office when it comes to recusing himself? Obviously, we've known these statements have come to us before in the past. What kind of talks have been moving forward to getting him to recuse himself?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say, I don't think we've made this type of public statement. I know there's been some conversations that we've had. I've had a couple conversations with the prosecutor. I actually had one today to confirm if his position is the same. He made it very, very clear that his position is the same, that he will not recuse himself. The other thing I want to be clear with is as well, one of the, I guess the number one recognition that he gave to me personally was that he's prosecuted between 10 and 12 officer-involved shootings throughout the county. And what makes this difference? So one of the things I think that makes this difference is that this is horrendous. You know, we can debate all day whether or not it was justifiable or what have you. It is horrendous what this officer, a trained officer of the law, did to Patrick by shooting him in the back of the head like an animal. And so his position is firm. Chris Becker's position is firm, and that's why we're out here today, to make sure we really amplify the voice of community, because community wants him to recuse himself. Community wants him to recuse himself, and it's the righteous thing to do.
Have you guys gotten any response? Have you gotten any
Well, again, so we're actually in the process of setting up a meeting. We're waiting for that meeting to be confirmed. Hopefully it will be this week. But here's the deal with this. Attorney General Nessel does not have to ask for permission. She has, again, full jurisdiction, full legality to come in and take this case over immediately. Immediately. And that is the right thing to do. We're asking her to follow the example of Attorney General Ellison in Minnesota, okay? And so she has full jurisdiction and legality to do that.
I guess you've been talking about the prosecutor's office and Chris Becker. If you could speak to him face to face, and if any of you want to answer this, but talk to him personally, person to person, what would you say to him?
I talked to him earlier today. I talked to him earlier.
What did you say to him?
And I said, we need for you to recuse yourself. The community is asking, and it's the right thing to do. And I'll be honest, what he said is, I was elected to do this, so I'm not recusing myself.
What about to the officer? If you could say anything to him, what would you say to him?
Well, what I will say, I wouldn't say anything to the officer. I would say something directly, in which I've already said this to his leadership, to Chief Winstrom specifically, is that he needs to be terminated. And the decertification process needs to start immediately. He does never need to have an opportunity to be an officer of the law in the state of Michigan. Period.
The AG's office is telling us that it must be referred.
That's not true.
What about other conflicts of interest? You mentioned conflicts of interest. Are there others? I know you mentioned Monica Janicki, but
yeah. Let me put a little more context to what he just asked. Here's the deal. We know that this has become real political. Now this is a game of politics. One of the things that Attorney Crump said when he first arrived in the city of Grand Rapids, when he first did his first press conference, he said that leaders need to lead. Leaders need to lead. And it's become very, very political. And quite honestly, it's becoming really shameful. And it's an assault and an affront to community, actually. And so that's what needs to happen. She has full jurisdiction. She has full legality again, Attorney General Dana Nessel, and she needs to lead. And
Commissioner Womack mentioned one conflict of interest. Are there others you want to mention?
I could mention a few. First of all, how many officer-involved incidents and elected official incidents have already been pushed over to Ionia County and other courts that are minute, do not reach the level of a person climbing up on the back of a person, holding their head down and pulling a gun out and shooting them in the back of the head. The other one is, we all know that this is law enforcement. This is West Michigan, Kent County local law enforcement. The police bring in a suspect. The detectives write it up. From the police report, investigate a little more and hand it to the prosecutor. The prosecutors take them to court. The court, if they're found guilty, takes them to jail. And this process goes back and forth in a circle in our community. So, how do you want one team to take another member of its team that's just under another name? I'm somebody who's went through the court system. I'm somebody who's hired lawyers to protect those that I think who are innocent, but has also told the community to call in and give the police information on those who are guilty. So I know how this goes. There's too much of a conflict of interest that it shouldn't even just happen in Kent County federally. Whenever an officer is involved in a shooting, it should be out of the hand of the local law enforcement to make that decision. Thank you.
Do you guys believe that the people who are handling the investigation then right now are political confidants? Is that something fair to say?
absolutely, absolutely.
And you haven't gotten responses that they will be recusing
We're not confident at all. No, absolutely not.
So then what's the next step if he doesn't recuse himself? I guess what's your timeline? What kind of timeline are you giving the prosecutor's office?
Immediately.
And if you don't get that, what's the next step for you guys?
Yeah, stay tuned.
Sorry, I know that's a little
That's it. One last thing. Thank you, President Clay Jackson, and thank you for always being strong, standing up for the community and NAACP. Thank you for being the soldiers on the battlefield of civil rights for us. If you listen to the Kuiper prosecution, drunk driving, and all that the police did to protect him, as they mentioned Monica Lewinsky, we can convince her not to ask for the video. They got caught. How many times have they done that without getting caught? They also said, I will show you how to make the breathalyzer numbers go down, but you can also make them go up. How many times have they done that before they got caught? And why do they do that? Because one hand washes the other.
Absolutely.
When obviously Becker doesn't seem like he's going to recuse himself, moving forward, what charges are you looking for on his officer for some kind of accountability in this case?
I'm not going to discuss that in terms of charges at this point. We don't have our legal counsel here. Mr. Crump, Attorney Crump, and Ben Johnson and his whole entire team are very capable. So I'm sure they'll be weighing in on that, but we're not prepared to discuss charges. What charges should be so.
What are your thoughts on just the pace of the investigation? Obviously, they officially released officer name yesterday, but the MSP is still investigating. It's been nearly a month. What are your thoughts on just how the investigation is going?
Well, I guess the question is for us, I think Commissioner said this earlier, is we need an update. Community needs an update. We fully understand that the investigation needs to be thorough, right? And it needs to be intentional. But can we get an update from the Michigan State Police Department or from the Grand Rapids Police Department? I believe this officer has been interviewed by Internal Affairs at GRPD. That's what I hear. But I think the community is just looking for an update. It's not been quite a month. It's been 20 days, 21 days, or what have you. But and we understand that especially in a case like this, the investigation takes time, right? But the community is looking for an update. But most importantly, there needs to be, again, that recusal from the prosecutor's office.
So we actually just heard back from Chris Becker during this thing. He's aware that this is going on. And he said, because I do not know Officer Assure, nor do I know Patrick Lyoya, the legal standard for recusal has not been met. What is your response, I guess, any of you, to him, right now?
Again, so I'll give you an example. Many of you heard about the Lamont Gully case. It was an officer involved shooting in Kentwood that happened a number of years ago. It was a horrible case. This young man actually murdered his girlfriend, I believe, at the time, and then he had the opportunity to run. Kentwood police caught up with him. They surrounded him, essentially barricaded him, several officers on the scene. Lamont Gully was laying on the ground. They had canine dogs that they had actually deployed on him, in which they were attacking him. And then all of a sudden, one of the officers pulls his sidearm and stands over Mr. Gully and shoots him, right? What happened in that case, Forsyth was the Kent County Prosecutor at the time. When he pulled some of us into that meeting, who's here today, the first thing he said before he even opened discussion, it said, I want everybody to know that I'm recusing myself from this case. He said that, right? So it's not like precedence hasn't been set already with this office that we're standing by. So I'm not sure what Chris says he needs to explain. what that really means in terms of unpacking that it does not meet the legal standards or thresholds. He needs to explain that. But the other thing, fundamentally, he just needs to do the right thing. He doesn't have to know this officer who committed this execution. We have to call it what it is, right? But he has a long-standing relationship with the Grand Rapids Police Department, their command staff, their leadership. His assistant prosecutors actually work with this department every single day. Every single day. So that's justification enough for him to recuse himself. And it's just the right thing to do. It's absolutely the right thing to do. And I want to go back to what Commissioner Womack said. This is no indictment, and I told Chris that earlier when we had this conversation. It's no indictment on you. It's just the right thing to do. That's it. It's no indictment. We're not saying that this office isn't qualified, you know, that they couldn't handle a case like this, but it's the right thing to do because you're too close to it. You're too close to it. Commissioner Womack just gave you an example of Josh Kuiper and what happened in that case, which was horrendous. And again, I'll echo what he said. Just imagine all of the other incidents that we don't know about. That happened on that secret phone line that we don't know about. So that's what I would say to that. So.
There's information I would probably know be speculated about Mr. Lyoya's past and about how there was an act going for him during the trial. What are your thoughts on that information and relevance to this case?
So I'm going to say this, and I'm not even going to really fully address that, but I will say this. Why are we criminalizing him? That has no bearing on what happened. He didn't stop. The officer who executed Patrick didn't stop him for a warrant. He did not. What he clearly did was racial profile him because he made a U-turn. In his surveillance technology, the license plate reader picked up that the tag did not belong to that vehicle. So whatever he had, warrants, past run-ins with the law, it has no bearing on what happened in this case over a minor traffic stop where he was executed, a 26-year-old black male. So that has no bearing on this. So what we're going to do, I know we have another meeting to get to and some other things. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. We'll keep everyone posted. The community is watching and waiting. Not only the community, but the world is watching and waiting to see what happens. So thank all of you for coming out today.